Hey Internet, I'm Chaz.
And I'm Dan. Welcome to Wine is Serious Business, episode 181. We're here tonight with our friend Vic, who was kind enough to share 3 wines from his personal cellar with us. He wanted to do a vertical from Lange Winery, and why don't you tell us a little bit about why you chose these wines?
Well, these wines are from the Freedom Hill Vineyard, which is located about 10 miles west of Salem, not one of the Lange Dundee Hills estate vineyards. And they're different. I think it reflects the warm days, cool nights, structured wines, and they've always stood out to me. So I've got a vertical of the 05, 06, and 07 here.
Yeah, 3 very interesting and distinct vintages, you know, here in the Willamette Valley.
Absolutely.
So the first one we're going to try is the 2007. Either one of you have any remarks about the 2007 vintage?
Well, for myself, I absolutely hated it early on. I really cut my teeth on 2006. 2005 was the first one I really fell in love with. 2006, I was, oh man, these are big, they're juicy. And then 07 came along and it was all structure and really tart fruit. And it was really hard for me to understand. And what we've seen as these wines have got some bottle age is just, they've turned into just wonderful wines.
They're very elegant, feminine wines, well-rounded wines, very balanced. And I think it surprised everybody how beautiful these wines have turned out. And most of them that I've tasted recently still have years to go.
Yeah, they've been a lot of fun to drink too, because it's always a surprise when you get into it. Like, oh, what did I miss the first time around? You know?
Oh, absolutely. And the cool thing is that you can still find a lot of these sometimes in wine shops. Like those 07s just didn't move out as quickly as people, well, other wine, like 08s came in behind them, hot vintage that everyone wanted. And hey, I'm still buying 07s from time to time because I'm like, well, they're ready to drink, you know, so.
Totally.
Yeah. Wow.
Great nose already. Kind of like really well integrated fruit, probably like strawberries and raspberries. A kind of tart, a little bit of floral component on there.
Yes, floral, but also like an herbal component too. There's just like a little bit of like fresh rosemary inside of it that provides a little bit of something.
I get that too. It's definitely the spice in this nose, but very floral.
Totally agree. And just a little bit of like something earthy or umami-ish on the nose too. It's really nice. Now, one thing when I first got into wines, I bought a bottle of the 06 Freedom Hill, and I've since tasted some of their vintages, and this tends to be one of their top tier wines. Like they really make a fantastic wine out of this every year.
Yeah, they started making the single vineyard from Freedom Hill, I think in 96.
Yes.
Oh wow.
And
been doing it a while.
And I think they've been using fruit from that vineyard since maybe 1990 or so. But you're right.
And that makes sense, I guess. They've had a lot of time to really, you know, focus in on what their, you know, what that land does well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And maybe they buy us some pretty good lots of it too.
Probably.
At this point. But yeah, they turn it into a wonderful wine. The fruit here is, well, I guess when you find an 07 and it's in a good place, there's integration between all components. That's really nice. Like it's seamless from start to finish, and this is providing that. And with a really long finish, which some 07s can close up a little bit on the finish due to the acidity, and this one is just really. Yeah.
Well, one of the things that I really like about the wines from this vineyard is the higher acidity. The alcohol level on all of these wines, I think the 06 is 13.9, and I think the others are low 13%. And you really get that balance and acidity. And I think it's a characteristic of wines that I've tasted from this vineyard.
Nice. I'll definitely agree. The acidity is really evident going all the way through. I'm getting some strawberry flavors on the palate. That's kind of the main thing for me, and not like the big, you know, like juicy, overwhelming, fruity strawberries that you get out of a lot of like young wines. They're more mature. There's some strawberry seeds in there, and then they're kind of delicate, right, with the acidity. And I think there's some tannic structure that's here too. It's not overwhelming, but it definitely brings some backbone to that fruit.
Totally agree. And the core of the fruit here, like there's a lot of it, and it's what I wouldn't classify it as juicy. It just has a really nice feel to it. Like it's almost like fresh, like I don't know. It's got a really nice freshness to it. But on the sides of the tongue, I get just a little bit of like richness, almost like I go back to balsamic, but it's not a balsamic flavor. But it's just like the sort of like umami-ish thing that you get from those sort of flavors, and it's wonderful. Yeah, it's really nice. And then the finish just provides those red fruit like strawberries, raspberry fruits for a nice long finish. Yeah, this is drinking really well.
Yeah, full package right now, and we decided to start with this because the 07, out of 5, 6, and 7, the 7 can be a little more delicate, and I think the fruit flavors kind of show that, but structurally everything's integrated right now. Like this is, in no possible sense would someone consider this a weak or light wine.
Not at all.
Absolutely not. Really solid. So.
What would you score it?
89. I think right now I want a little more time on it. Actually, I like like I was talking about the tannins. I think after another couple years for them to mellow out a little bit, I think they will that umami flavor will even come out a little more, and it'll integrate with that fruit, and I'll enjoy it even more. But delicious, good package right now.
I like where the integration is. I like a little more fruit as opposed to the earthy and sort of umami. And so I think it's in a really good place now, but I think I totally agree with Dan in that it's not going to be a bad thing to hold on to this, right? In a couple more years, a few more years, this will continue to be a wonderful wine. And I'd go 90 plus on it. I like it quite a bit.
Nice. You?
Yeah.
I'm not used to applying numbers to wines. But,
Sounds good.
I like it, and I'm glad I've got more.
Yeah.
Fantastic way to look at it, yeah. All right, so we're going to rinse with the 06. So, how long have you been collecting wine?
Oh.
Like, I know I started 05, I really started collecting 06, but like, when was your big...
My big aha moment with wine was in the early 70s, and it was with a California cab at that time that was made by Freemark Abbey. And at that time I was a student, so I took an interest, but really didn't start, I guess, hoarding,
Sure.
if you will, in any quantity until probably late 80s. And then in the last 10 years, it's really taken on more of an interest, and the cellar's grown, and the palate's become more refined. I used to buy everything under the sun and try it, and kind of reveled in the variety. Now I care less about variety, and I just focus in on things I like.
I suppose, if you spend that much time searching out,
Yeah.
What's out there,
Yeah.
What were the first few that really stuck with you that you're like, man?
As far as Oregon Pinots go, this is one of the first Oregon wineries that I visited or learned about a little bit, and it was easy to find. I thought it was interesting. The Lange, Don, and Wendy. They're like songwriters or writers. I think she studied ballet or something. They didn't come from wine.
Right.
But so this was easy to get to, and one of the first Oregon wines that I started paying attention to.
Nice.
And their entry level stuff is quite reasonably priced too. Right?
Yeah.
It's really accessible.
Really quite good.
Yeah.
I know we've reviewed the Reserve, I think, in previous vintages on the show, or I've had it on the show a couple times, so.
Yeah.
Here, that's
That's my rinse.
Toss that one down, we'll step you up to the 06. So this is the 2006 Freedom Hill Pinot Noir. One I bought some of, and I think Dan continues to hold his bottle, so I guess we have to see how it
That's always a treat, right? When I get to see how my wines are aging without opening them.
But thank you again. Let me throw a cut in here and just close that door.
Sure.
I've heard something kick on in there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Wow.
Yep.
You think that affected a lot?
I bet we'll notice. I bet you'll notice after that cut. Yeah. If you're looking for it.
Yeah.
I don't know if.
Sorry about that.
No, it's good.
All right.
It's good. We were just going to smell it. So.
All right. So
Yeah.
2006 Freedom Hill.
This one jumps out of the glass
It
way
does.
more.
Yeah. A lot more power going on here in the nose.
Well, it's just more classical 06. It's so representative of the vintage. The fruit forwardness of this wine compared to the 07, it's just huge difference.
I completely agree. I think high alcohol wine gets faulted for you know, it's easy to say '06 was a crappy vintage, but the more I'm finding is, and I think that everyone eventually falls to this, that yeah, it's classic '06 Oregon, and it really is, and you can't fault it because that's the way the vintage was.
And just like everybody, right? Some people made good wine out of it every year. Some people made good wine out of it. Some people didn't. And,
totally agree.
To me, it's not that it's certainly not a bad wine.
Nope.
It's just a vintage that produces a wine that I think that far less structure, far less tannin in this wine, probably far less ageability than what we just drank.
I would say so. Well, just from the initial taste, there's not the freshness that the '07 had. Definitely the fruit. But I consumed most of my '06s probably about a year, 2 years ago. For that reason, I found a couple of them were starting to fall off a cliff, is what we call it sometimes, where they age prematurely, just because of having so high alcohol.
Yeah,
they just don't hold on, right? Either they get flabby, they get, like you said, the structure's lower, and so that fruit just does whatever it wants to, and it gets jammy and turns into a mess. And this one's not doing that so much.
It's still under. Some of these '06s are above 14%, 14.5% alcohol on the label. Yes. This one's not that, so you know, it's not in that category.
And it's even showing. So we checked them all to make sure they weren't corked before we started, and it's showing even. Like then I got a little bit of dried fruit, and I'm not even really getting that so much on the nose now. I'm getting a little more like earthy and meaty character, kind of in there, which is I think kind of classically a little bit of the secondary character you get out of Pinot Noir.
A little bit of dark flavor. It's almost like reminding me of like Fig Newtons without the cookie. You know, like some of the dried fig.
Yeah, it doesn't have the spice to it that the '07 had, and to me, as it hits the tongue and rolls over the mid palate and the finish, it's more monotonal. Whereas the '07 had nuances, as it you know, from the nose, the tongue, the mid palate, the finish, everything was a little different. This is more the same.
It really is almost all dark fruit and earth, and yes, there is no. The '07 did provide some nuance with like a little bit of savory components, whatever, and earth. This is all just earth, dark fruit, and yes, little else. But that said, the stuff that's there is quite nice.
And I like the texture right on contact. I think it starts pretty softly. The alcohol that isn't striking, right? Like we talked about it being higher. It's still under 14. It's right in line with the other three. And the tannins are showing some more maturity. Like you said, they're lighter.
Softer.
They're definitely softer, and the fruit shows on the darker side. Like this one, I think is totally ready to go. Like I kind of like where it's at right now, and I also don't think like, oh, what would this taste like in 5 years?
It's not going to get better.
No.
Yeah. Like now's the time.
Yeah.
Totally.
I gotta dig mine out. Gotta find out.
Yeah, it's probably stuffed way in the back. It's probably a bottle you haven't seen in a while, huh?
I don't know where it is. But I like how the fruit flavors get to the side of the mouth. The acidity is still there. It's definitely lighter than the 7, but it's not a flabby wine, which is really nice to see when you get into the '06s.
This is holding on really well. I was worried about my note because I posted a note on Cellar Tracker a couple of years ago when I consumed my bottle, and I was seeing like it didn't have the freshness of the wine on release, and I didn't know where it was going. And I think I was kind of stuck in a mindset too that I was finding '06s that were falling off, and so my brain was just, these are all on a downward trend. But this is drinking really nice.
Yeah,
I completely agree. So, where to score it though? While it does have a lot of good components, it is sort of monotonal, and that is a really good point. 88 plus 89 points for me. But that said, it's wonderful wine still, right? And I completely agree, ready to go. So.
yeah, 89 for me for different reasons that I kind of for different reasons than the '07, kind of that I talked about, right? It's more ready, it's more integrated, but it's a little less interesting, but still quite tasty. And like I said, I'm glad I've got a bottle, and I look forward to drinking it within the next year. Final thoughts?
I'm glad I've drunk most of that.
Excellent. Little rinse here with the 2005. This is a vintage that, you know, on release, both of us were still brand new to wine. Didn't have a whole lot of thoughts on it. Like 2003 was such a disappointment. 4 was just kind of middle of the road. 5 I don't really remember having any impressions of until recently. Over the last couple of years, 2005s have shown themselves to be such winners in my experience, and now I'm excited whenever I get to try one.
I wish I haven't had enough 05s recently to even put a gauge on it, but 05 was the vintage that turned me on to wine. It was Evesham Wood 2005 Willamette Valley. I know I've said that 20 times in the show,
Good.
but that was it. And so the 05s that I do have, I hold with like really high regard. I've got a small amount, and they're stashed, and only for special occasions. So, what about you? How do you feel about 05?
This is one of my favorite vintages for a variety of reasons. I think in terms of the kind of year it was, I think it was similar to what 07 was. I may be wrong on that, but that's what I recall. But I really like this wine. It's got a nose. You get some diesel in the nose that wasn't there in either of the other wines.
This smells so good. It smells so good.
Yeah. I really am fond of this wine.
Oh man,
This smells absolutely wonderful. Yeah.
and honestly, like on the nose alone, if you're curious what Oregon Pinot Noir does as it ages, like this is a
Perfect example.
great experience of that. Yeah. And you might be able to find some of this on auction sites from time to time because you know it's out there. I see Lange stuff from time to time, and 2005 isn't that long ago, but man, fantastic sense of like earth mingling with this like tart pomegranate fruit, kind of like a little bit of raspberry coming through as well.
There's just so much going on in the nose. There's like a little bit of like you get like a beef jerky thing, just a little bit of like meat, but like just the earth and like a truffly dried mushroomy, and along with just like
It's a real brambly wine to me.
Yes, nice.
Yeah, and brambly in the sense of what do you mean? Like for someone, I'm not. I'm not.
Some spice on the dark fruit. It's got some edges on it.
Almost like blackberry patch or like,
Okay.
Like all right.
Dried out like late in summer when it's
Exactly.
That makes sense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a great descriptor.
I have to ask. Sometimes like I sometimes tasting notes come or words come up where I just don't understand. Still learning. Sappy's one. Sappy's one that I hear every once in a while. Where totally agree. Man, this is delicious.
I agree.
Wow.
And I think it's on the ageability. I think it's kind of an indicator of what the 07 is going to become like a little more. Not exactly, but I think if you project the 07 3-5 years down the road, I think it's going to have a lot of these characteristics to it.
I can definitely see it because the tannins are in such a good place right now, and the fruit, is still totally healthy and engaging.
But completely under a blanket of like forest floor and earth and just this is wonderful.
It's a seductive wine.
I would agree.
The texture is in such a good place, and there's this like sense of chalky minerality to it that this is a very cliche thing to hear, but not for me. You won't hear me call Oregon Pinot Noir Burgundian very often, and I don't like to see it happen. But you could blind me on this, and I think I would even guess Burgundy. You wouldn't even have to tell me that's what it was.
Wow.
There's a sense of minerality here, and just kind of the way that the flavors are sitting on my palate that it reminds me, of my limited experience with Burgundy, but it makes me think about it, and in a really good way.
And there's a great lingering effect of the flavors here. The finish is very long, and I mean the flavor sticks to the tongue. I've got 10, 15, 20 seconds later, you can sort of just sit there and relax with it and still taste it. It's wonderful.
I agree.
One of the best 05s I've had in a long time. Like I said, my experience with them is minimal, but I do run into them. I'd say every few months. I get to have it and enjoy an 05, and this is one of the best ones I can remember. Yeah. Thank you for sharing.
Tremendous finish. Wow. The 05 and the 07, the three we've tasted here, both have great long finishes on them.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't pick up that at all with the 06.
I agree.
Nearly as much.
The fruit, especially, like
Yeah.
it was just structure at the end. Kind
Yeah.
of thing. But
This, wow.
was it? Did you taste some of this on release too, or have you had
Well, I
this-
bought all of these directly from the winery
Okay.
at about the time they were released. Yeah, well, shortly after release.
Sure.
yeah.
Sure. Like, did you have memories of tasting it when it was younger, or have you been storing most of them for?
Yeah, I tasted them at the winery. I didn't open anything right away,
Sure.
but I started
what I
opening
usually
them 2-3 years ago.
Sweet.
Yeah.
And has this one always been exciting, or is it just?
It's more exciting now than ever.
Awesome.
By far. I haven't had one in a couple of years, so they're always more exciting after about 7 or 8 years, though.
It's true, when they really start to come into their own,
Yeah.
start seeing.
I mean, and I think that's a real truism that a lot of people are just now starting to realize how well many of the Oregon Pinots that are produced, how long and how well they age, and I kind of have a guideline now where I don't really like to open them except to just kind of see how they're doing until they've got at least 7 or 8 years on them, and some a lot longer than that.
Yeah, especially once you have like a lineup of producers you really respect, and you
right.
know they've got that
Yeah.
longevity in
Yeah.
it. And this is definitely right. They've been at it for a long time. A little plug for them too. Like their winery's up in the Dundee Hills. It's a great place to visit, and
That's a beautiful
A
spot.
little bit off the beaten path,
a little
right?
bit, but
Yeah.
worth it. Yeah. And
Totally
great
stuff.
view. Like if you're the type when you go tasting that you like to set up and have a picnic and drink some wine and chill out. You know, unfortunately, more engineer mentality, nerd mentality. Like I like to taste. But if you like to sit and chill, they've got views over the valley. Mountain Hood comes up from behind. Nice patio out there. It's a great place to visit.
It really is.
Well, to me, in tasting every one of these wines, there's the acidity and the minerality in every one of them, despite the differences and the nuances in each wine and so forth. There is consistency that comes, there's an expressive of Freedom Hill, the place. And that's one of the great things that I love about drinking Pinot Noir, is that it seems like the less of the grape you taste and the more of the place you taste is what it's all about.
And especially as the vines become more mature and
Yeah.
the winemakers become more
Yeah.
comfortable with what they're working with. And I'd say that there are consistent flavors through this that
I agree.
you know
Yeah.
that I don't consider to be universal Oregon Pinot Noir experiences. Yeah.
Particularly the herbaceousness, right? And spiciness. But yes. And yeah, wonderful wines. So, the last thing to do is the question of the day.
Question of the day.
Yeah.
What
Yes,
would you like to
easy
ask
question
anybody who watches the show?
of the internet?
Why haven't you tasted these wines and visited this winery yet?
Excellent question. I bet we'll get a couple. I bet we'll get a couple decent responses for that.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for sharing these and for agreeing to do the show with us. Like, we hope to have like more collectors on too. 'Cause it's another great way to share the story of what's going on with Oregon wines, and we really appreciate you coming on to do
My
that.
pleasure.
Very well said. Yeah. Thank you
Great.
very much. Yeah. Well,
Cheers.
see you guys next time.